For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, therefore behold, the Lord bringeth upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory. He shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks, and he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land. O amen.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in the book of Proverbs. We had a little issue, but all I did was get through the reading, and I'm going to read it again. I'm going to take that, and maybe I'll use it over on the Reading the Bible channel, just as because I thought the reading was actually quite good. Let's see if I can do it again. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. And whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. The fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Whoso provoketh him to anger sinneth against his own soul. It is an honor for a man to cease from strife, but every fool will be meddling. The sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg in harvest and have nothing. Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Most men will proclaim every one his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? The just man walketh in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. A king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? Diverse weights and diverse measures, both of them are alike abomination to the Lord. That was a terrible reading, but let's try it again. Diverse weights and diverse measures, both of them are alike abomination to the Lord. Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. Love not sleep, lest thou come to poverty. Open thine eyes, and thou shalt be satisfied with bread. It is not, it is not, saith the buyer. But when he is gone his way, then he boasteth. There is gold and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. Take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. Bread of deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth shall be filled with gravel. Every purpose is established by counsel, and with good advice make war. He that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. Therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. Whoso curseth his father or his mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. An inheritance may be gotten hastily at the beginning, but the end thereof shall not be blessed. Say not thou, I will recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save thee. No, I want to read that again, more mindfully. I got caught up. Sometimes that happens when I get caught up thinking about the last verse, and then I'm like reading the next one, and I'm not doing it right. Say not thou, I will recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save thee. Diverse weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? It is a snare to the man who devoureth that which is holy, and after vows to make inquiry. I shouldn't make it like a question, but I almost feel like it's like, that's fine. That's an outrage. That's my choice to read it that way. Anyways, there's no punctuation in the original Bible. It's all inflection. I mean, it's helpful, the translators, to interpret it that way. A wise king scattereth the wicked, and bringeth the wheel over them. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. Mercy and truth preserve the king, and his throne is upholden by mercy. The glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the gray head. The blueness of the wound cleanseth away evil, so do stripes the inward parts of the belly. I like those darker Proverbs, inward-looking ones, you know. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. Whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Don't be deceived. I mean, I think in youth you can perhaps make an excuse. I mean, everyone tells us, right? Everyone tells us that it's bad. I remember in school they had all kinds of campaigns telling you how bad it is. And everything science knows and has discovered tells us that it's not good for us. I mean, whatever they say about, whatever. The point is, like a lot of things, there are things which in very small measure, a little wine for your stomach, whatever. I do not at all take a dogmatic position that it's wrong in every case, because it is not. Of course, in taking communion, I believe that, I know some people think that's grape juice, and okay, that's perfectly fine. You should not be deceived, though. Like, that is a very small amount. I mean, no one should ever be drunken taking communion. You're passing the cup or whatever. There's not a lot of drinking going on. So we know that there are things which in small amounts are not sinful, but in large amounts are. That's why wine is a mocker, man. The more you mess with it, just like all things, the more contact you have with fools, the more contact you have with mockers, the more you have to do with them, the more you're going to pay the price for not heeding wisdom. You know what I mean? If you're deceived by alcohol, if you don't understand, it's like a very small amount, very small. Small? So small you don't feel any effects. That's about how small as I would regard as, like I said, because then you're not being lured in. Because the lure, of course, is the good feelings, right? I wonder what raging means, because I don't want to try to too hard to fit that in if it is not a proper, I know some people, for them the King James is the ultimate translation, and for me I guess it is too, because I've never found one I want to switch away from it. So, but I'm not a King James, what would you call it? Well, onlyist, either one, but not only that, I just don't have these mythological beliefs about the King James being perfect in something like that. That's mythological. That's myth making. I do not, anyone who says that just has never studied the whole King James Bible and in the Hebrew and looked into it, because it's like they're just, come on. I mean, you agree with every decision ever made. Okay, fine. Okay, you just agree with all their decisions. It's like, I don't. Anyways, what are examples? I'm not an apologist for that stuff, so I don't have them at hand. I should note them as I go through my Bible studies. I should have a little notepad, which I have several of around here. I should dedicate one of them to and I will at some point. Actually, I should start making notes as I go. In fact, I'm just going to take this one because it's the one here, and it's not likely to get used up. But we're going to put it here, and if I have to remember any verse particular, I'll write it down. But for any reason, I don't know if these are going to come into play here. Anyways, so the word is primavera, to murmur, growl, roar, or be boisterous. Oh, let me bring it over to you. Sorry, browse internet. There we go. And the meaning, okay. To murmur, growl, roar, or be boisterous. So how is it often used? To growl like a dog, in one sense. To murmur, figurative of soul and discouragement. Like, okay. Roar of waves. So that, when you think of that, like the deep sound of waves and the murmuring in discouragement, like, or something, I don't know. To be in commotion or stir of a city. To be boisterous, turbulent, as with wine. Okay, wine. Okay, so I guess then it is simply, it's not that it says it's raging, right? Raging sort of makes me think like anger. It's not necessarily, but the idea of boisterousness, turbulence. Now that definitely, I think, is helps me understand. Because clamorous, well, what are you clamoring for? Concourse, not sure what that means in that context. Yeah. Anyways, cry aloud, disquieted, loud mourn, primitive compare, to make loud sound, like English hum. By implication, to be in great commotion, tumult, rage. Clamor. Okay, sure. That in the sense of, yeah, it is, well, we know what it does. It reduces your inhibitions. It impairs your judgment. It causes you to, instead of, it's turbulence. Instead of where you would normally be pretty steady, you're not so steady anymore. You're more likely to do things you wouldn't normally do. You're more likely to act in ways you're not normally act. It impairs you. And that impairment, and that's what I think that raging is about. It causes you to be disturbed. And it may seem, in part pleasurable, but very often adult. And even besides that, ultimately it gets you in the end, And we cannot be deceived by it. Now, that doesn't mean like you may have a problem with alcohol, but if you understand you have a problem, you're not deceived by it. You just got to stop allowing it to rule your life. Okay. And that's the thing. We know, and it's good when we know we have a problem, right? I didn't know it was that tight. We need to know when we have problems so that we can attack them, so we can focus on them. It's not a bad thing once you know. Like I said, when you're young, often people, even though we get all kinds of warnings, people are still foolish enough to be deceived. They'll say, like, well, I'm young and strong, and and it doesn't seem to have an effect early on. But like it has long-term effects. It can destroy every cell in your body. It damages and can cause harm. So, the fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Whoso provoketh him to anger sinneth against his own soul. Yep, the fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Well, meaning when you hear, there's almost like an instinctive. You hear, if you're in the wild and you hear an animal loudly roaring nearby you, you're going to take note of that real fast and become exceedingly aware of that, without a doubt. And I think it's like that we all have an instinctive understanding that, like, or most of us do. I mean, some people have low impulse control, or there are other things that are, they lose the fear of the government, in the sense of, I guess when you operate by the rules and the system seems to be serving you, or at least you believe you can have a decent life within the system, it's pretty easy to go along with it, especially if you don't have an inclination to be, if you're not, like I said, I've always been a fairly rule-abiding person. My inclination always was, what are the rules, and then to play by them, whether it was in sports. I think in all the years I played football, I don't think I ever once was called for a penalty having to do with, like something like being offsides or some technical aspect of the game. Never offsides, never motion before the, I never got called for stuff like that. On offense or defense, I don't remember being called for anything in particular. Because I never held people. I didn't need to worry about that. But for a lot of people, that's just part of the game. It's like hiding the cheating. Well, I know that there are people who, I don't know, criminals are they just born? I don't really buy into that. We all have a sinful nature. I see it in every single infant child I've ever encountered. Maybe not like in the beginning, there's not much sin there, of course, because they're so small. What can they do? But as soon as they get on their feet and they get the use of their hands and and they have desire, they are absolutely uncivil, selfish, mean, angry little people. They run around enraged over things because you're telling them all the time no about certain things or not allowing certain, because you can't let them do all this stuff unless you want to just raise a little monster. It's got to start there, because if you allow that behavior at that time, it just keeps going and they just keep being little monsters. You have to actually unmonsterify your child, and then they become good children. And I think you can also promote the monstrification, because I think actually a lot of it does wear off with maturity, because the feedback, even if your parents aren't great at discipline, you're going to get feedback from them and from other people and realize this is not really working for me so much. Those people who act like babies aren't liked by anybody, right? So you just have to kind of grow up anyways, because your peers won't like it. Nobody likes people like that. So that kind of wears off, but still. But then on the other hand, you can have things that reinforce, sociopathic pathways, where you end up in criminal behavior and stuff, and where the king is no fear to you, I guess. I don't know. Again, like I said, it's like, the king is now disembodied. To me, when I think of the king, I just mean the force of government. And for me, that's just going to be the person I have to deal with. It's a king's officer, the king's man, whatever. He's enforcing the law of the king, ultimately, which is nobody. Because our sovereign in our country is ourselves collectively under this republic. And the republic has an executive, but he's not a king. The president can't just order a citizen arrested, something like that. He doesn't sit as a judge. He doesn't do those things. He's just not that. It's part, but he's part of it. He's definitely the most powerful guy in the country as far as that goes. But in the country, his power is actually quite limited, as it ought to be. I mean, at least as far as what he can do, it ought to be. They are not supposed to be able to do a lot of things they're doing. Of course, they're doing they've expanded their power somewhat, right? Or think they have, anyways. Like I said, we won't stand. I can't imagine we're going to stand for it. Not long term. As I said, just give us some time, and we will pass laws. And I don't feel vindictive, perhaps, but we'll get to that verse, right? No, I don't believe in vindictiveness. But if you don't punish people who have done really bad things, then that just sets the stage for it happening again. And certain things are really bad that have been done. And so there certainly has to be some sort of price to pay. Some sort of, and it needs to go through, of course, the channels of the law. I would never advocate anything else, except for the coming of our Lord Jesus to overthrow all the governments of the world, of course, because that's my only true loyalty is to him, of course. There's nothing in this world that I would not betray for the sake of the Lord Jesus. I mean, as far as, because it's for his sake. I mean, it's to me that would mean anything that I had to betray for his sake would be traitor, would be something that was against him. I had gone against him. And not just in the sense, but meaning in a pathway sense, meaning it not like it's ever going to come back. Not like there's any turning to repentance. It's not coming or going to come. So, provoking to anger, you get it's good to stay within the confines of the law. I said, I don't really believe in wearing seatbelts, but I wear seatbelts because it's the law. And I don't want to make the policeman angry, quote unquote. I don't want to provoke him to get out his pencil and start writing me a ticket. I want him, if he happens to pull me over because maybe I wasn't paying attention and got going a little fast, I want to explain that to him, hopefully in a very pleasant way, that he decides to just run my license to see that I have no criminal record, nor have I had a moving violation in quite a number of years. And he will see, and then he lets me go my way. That's usually what happens. That's what I want to happen. So I don't do anything to provoke that to anger, except now that what astonishes me that the people speaking their minds about subjects, about public health and stuff, that somehow that would be of any, that the government would actually seek to censor such things and to use proxies such as YouTube to censor those things. That's astonishing to me. It's also incredibly illegal of them to do that. To the company, and the legality, the company can legally do it, but that the government is commanding them to do it, the government has broken the law. They've violated the Constitution, is what they've done. And that has to be adjudicated, unfortunately, so we won't have, one, it already has been declared to be unconstitutional by a court of law. Question is, what are we going to do about it? Well, like I said, give us a little time. It takes time to make things happen, you know that? In the meantime, let's see what's going on, right? Don't get in trouble with the government if you can avoid it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to speak the truth. I don't know if that puts me in any real trouble with them, and if it does, then it does. It's like the Lord, look at the history of the prophets. Jeremiah, he was in trouble with the rulers because he's saying things that they didn't want to hear. And a lot of times that's just what happens. It's like to speak the truth to people who don't want to hear it. Well, you're taking your life in your own hands. How important is that truth? You know what I mean? And that's why we serve the Lord Jesus Christ, because that is an important truth. Because through him, mankind can live forever. Not all mankind, but mankind, which is something. That the light of man should not be snuffed out. It is an honor for a man to cease from strife. To stop being cantankerous and fighting. It's good. It's honorable, right? But foolish people always got to go poking at things. They always got to go meddling. They always got to go, hey, what was that thing? Did that, bringing up bad things from the past. Bringing up, hey, you guys had that problem back there years ago, didn't you? Don't stir up the pot when it doesn't need stirring. When it's not for good. You stir up the pot when it's going to make good things happen. Don't stir up the pot to make bad things happen, you wicked. Seriously. And it's foolish. It is wicked to do it for evil intent. A fool does it without thinking. They just meddle in stuff without even considering. But there is a reason. A wise man gives his advice for important reasons. But don't cast your pearls before swine. There's a time to open your mouth. There's a time to zip it. That's why we study the word, so we know when. A slugger will not plow by. It's too cold to go out working. Man, I love working in the cold. You don't get all sweaty. Not when it's really cold, but usually nobody talks about plowing when it's below freezing. I like working outside even when it's below freezing. Because it probably comes from living in a northern climate, but it's kind of fun you get warmed up, you're out there, you're moving around, and then you're pretty soon you just got long sleeves on, maybe just one layer, and and it's 20 degrees out. It's not so bad. I like it. I don't love it. I like the hot a lot better. I like the warmth better. We're having a nice warm December up here, by the way. We have had a very beautiful, I'm dreaming of a green Christmas. I'll tell you that. That's fine with me. We don't get many of those. You down south, you can dream about your white Christmases, okay? I'll dream about green Christmases. That's what we think. Oh yes, a Christmas full of green grass, because it still hasn't even killed the grass entirely, and money. I'm just kidding. Money answers all things, does it not? All right. The slugger will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg and harvest and have nothing. You got to be willing to get out and work when it's not easy to get out and work. You got to be willing to do things even when it's not convenient. I'll tell you, it's like sometimes, like I said, I remember one time I was in the rain. It was cold. I had a flat tire. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm just thankful I'm in a parking lot and not on the side of the road. And then I smiled and just did what I had to do to get that done. Laid down there in the wet, asphalt and changed the tire. No big deal. I was cold, but I was sort of invigorating too. Once you embrace the misery of it and just decide to laugh, sometimes that's the way it goes. The Lord is gives us, a heart to be merry even in the face of, because I'm like, I guess it could get worse than this. It's pretty bad, but I can imagine a lot worse things going on. I mean, I've been run over by a car once, so I mean, my own car. So, I've had a car drive over me. That's scary. Thankfully, it was a big car, big tall tires, so I could fit under it. Counsel in the heart of a man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Yeah. It's like deep water in that. It's like, wow, it's so deep and profound. Like, how people, I've had this, and a lot of times people have said to me, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? Like, how did you come up with that? And they literally say it like, how did you come up with that? It's like, where did you get that from? Out of what hole, out of what deep, dark abyss of profound, because no one's ever, like, I've never heard such tell of things. Did you pull that thing from? And I guess that's because I, as a creative type, who's been also, I talked to God all my life, and I've been seeking him out and learning about him and studying the Bible, I mean, for years and years and years, just as a standard part of my life, making it into music and stuff. So that as you continually go to the well of looking for counsel, because counsel has to, I've said this before, ideas do not come from my brain, per se. I mean, it's not like I'm born with all these ideas and I got to go looking for them. They're not there. There's nothing there. So your brain has to like intercept multiple ideas and then like hang on to them. And then eventually it like puts things together and stuff, inside. You start taking all those things and you make connections between them and stuff. Right? But it's a question of receiving them. You have to have the right pieces and they have to be in the right order. It's a very complicated thing, the idea of thought and idea, and it's a inspiration. It's kind of miraculous. But it also comes from practice. When you learn to understand things, when I first approached the Bible, it was kind of like my daughter asked me about this thing, and and I'm like, well, I understand, because at first you don't know anything. You don't even know what you're looking at. I remember I'd read just a few books, and I couldn't touch Isaiah. I read, I'd read Matthew and Mark and Luke, and I think John and Revelation and Acts, of course. I mean, as a teenager, and then the Epistles of Paul. I couldn't really. It was like, I don't know. It wasn't talking to me somehow. I was just like, huh? It's like it was just I could tell he was writing to people, and I was like, he was talking about Jesus. Well, I believed in Jesus, so I was just like, it seemed like these. I didn't understand that. Like, you need to kind of analyze what he was saying, because there was he had a lot to say. So I didn't understand the word. I needed someone to show me. Even somebody who I now regard as a false teacher is able to just show you, like, okay, this is what the Bible is. Here's the Old Testament, and here's the story, the basic story. Even if you get details of the story wrong, it's like you still got it. It's like, can you tell me the story of Hansel and Gretel? Yeah. Is it going to sound just like in Grimm's fairy tales, or whichever one it's from? Is it going to sound just like that? Is it going to be exact word for word from? No, of course not, because you can't remember it like that. Can you tell me the story of Jesus? Probably that, but could you tell me the story of the whole Bible? Not many people can. But I can do a pretty good job. But that's the thing. You got to know the whole story of the Bible. And that can have a greater or a lesser resolution on it. Meaning you can have a very low resolution image of what the whole Bible story is. We have the beginning, we have Adam, the fall of man, through Noah and the flood, and then up through Abraham and the patriarchs, and then we go into the captivity in Egypt, and then coming out and wandering in the wilderness of the children of Israel, then 40 years in the wilderness because of their sin, and then finally taking the land later on under Joshua, of course at the time of the death of Moses, of course the giving of the law, which I didn't really mention. But like I said, I'm trying to be really low resolution. It's hard to even give it a low resolution. Then into the period of the judges and the kings and the prophets, and then the captivities of Assyria and Babylon, and then into the New Testament period and the coming of Christ. But even all that, that's like what does that mean? You need to have a more granular, detailed image. And it just takes being exposed to it a bit one exposure gives you a pretty good understanding. It's pretty easy to get like a basic knowledge of the scripture. As far as the big themes, the big narratives, the story of Abraham and the story of Jesus, the story of Moses also, because that actually plays into the story of Christ very importantly, of course, because he came to deal with the problems that arose from the giving of the law. That no man can be saved by it. The law doesn't save people, it just condemns them. Okay. Yeah, so by understanding we can draw this understanding out. By use of understanding to come up with counsel, the right idea at the right time. How precious is that? Counsel. It's hidden in our hearts somehow. Well, it's not that it's hidden there. It's like you have to go fishing for it. Like I said, it's like deep water. It's like it's outside of you. Really fascinating like that. There's a lot of analogies with that, the deep water. The deep water of the abyss is both terrifying and also it's the place from where like even ourselves come. Like I come from the blackness of darkness of the infinite night of unconsciousness. That's where I come from. Out of the deep water of the nothing that was before I existed. And I know I'm not from everlasting, None of us are from everlasting. A lot of people believe in pre-incarnation, but it's fun. But you don't believe you're from everlasting, do you? No, only God is from everlasting. Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness. I'm just such a great... Yeah, it's not... It is only because of the teachings of Jesus, of course, that I have a reluctance to talk about it. To want to talk about all the good deeds I do. Even when I say it, I mock it because I don't want to say it. I don't do all these good deeds anyways. I don't have a lot of power to do good deeds. What I do, I do. And it's not hard to proclaim your own goodness. I could list off positive things I do in my life. I could try to build myself up. It's not most men, not all. Who can find a faithful man? Because it's not a question of what you say anyways, what you proclaim. It's what are you going to do? Are you actually faithful to the goodness? Do you believe? That's why I people were talking about free speech. People were talking about free speech, right? Until the war in Gaza. Now I see a lot of people who were talking about free speech on what I used to think of as my side of the aisle, so to speak. Not that I've been voting independent since the first year I voted, which was for Ross Perot. And I only voted for... I've only voted for exactly 2 Republicans for president. And I regret one of them. And that was George W. Bush. I regret ever voting for that man. Not that I would have voted for the other guy. It didn't matter in my state anyways, because Illinois doesn't go red, not since Reagan. Yeah. No way. I regret that. But I would have voted third party, like I often do. And last time, the other Republican, of course, which was the last president, is not even really a Republican, so. But I do. I've always appreciated the way the Republicans pander to family and faith, and they pander to us. They want to be our part. They want us. They're willing to look for our vote, and I'm at least some of them are. At least that's what we're supposed to think, right? That's what they want us to think. They're like, oh well, they stand for our values, right? They stand for our values. They stand for goodness. I'm not so sure about that. I think a lot of them just stand for their own enrichment. And they want to keep getting elected, so they want us to be happy about whatever it is they're doing up there. But, actually serving us is not really their purpose. They're not actually faithful to the oaths they take. They're not faithful to the people they put them in office. They're faithful to they are in a sense. They're faithful to people that donate the money to make it possible for them to continually stay in office. Because, how are you going to get a faithful man really to even be in that position unless you draft someone? Literally you got to, pull someone and say, hey, we want you to run. I always felt that way when we tried to run Alan Keyes against Barack Obama. But, of course, that was never going to fly because he's kind of carpetbagging into the state. I voted for him anyways. I tried to stop that disaster. before it happened. Yeah, but politicians firmly come to mind. People always extolling, oh, we're going to do, oh, we're good. They're all good. And the other side's all evil. And now the other side, they're all good. And the other side's all evil. But really, the state our country is in, we have problems from every direction. And I suppose there's, people, there are good people of many differing opinions on different issues. But integrity to, I don't know, to some core principles has to be, what is goodness? That's another problem. That the problem right now in society is that we've lost track. They call good evil and evil good. They call good evil and they call evil good. So what are we going to do? Because it's like proclaiming your own goodness. That virtue signal. By the way, that's very very clear idea we have today, right? I'm gonna signal my virtue. A lot of times, though, I do feel like people who, they'll tout their virtue, but they're actually hypocrites. A lot of people that really try to, go after people for racism or whatever, they're constantly screaming about it, are probably deep down closeted racists, of course. I mean, what else? What else? What else? Like, that wouldn't be the most predictable outcome. And it's actually quite clear if you listen to the people who talk about, so-called anti-racism, they're just racist. They just call it anti-racism so they can, it's like calling it, it's like calling, I don't know, whatever. I was going to use another anti thing and I realized it's all ridiculous. Because a lot of these anti-thises are actually just a way of being that thing. But it's like, I'm an anti-Nazi. What's an anti-Nazi? Well, I act exactly like a Nazi, but for all the opposite reasons. What? So, I for the sake of, instead of wanting a ethno state, I want a multi-ethno state, and I'm willing to kill for it. That's the sort of thing, and that's not, remember, that was said ironically. That was said ironically. I'm annoyed because I got to be careful. It's on another channel, but on my other channel, I got a comment removed allegedly for hate speech, which I don't do. As far as what is defined as hate speech is like targeting groups of people in a certain way. I don't believe I do that. I'd never consciously do that. Anyways, I always try to preach that, like Jesus said, that, he that is without sin, let him cast the first stone. So, since my beliefs go in that direction, what there's no room for, unless you're going to start defining it differently, of course, is hate speech is just when I disagree with you. Oh, okay, that. I guess then I am guilty of hate speech. Actually, I'm not sure what it was. I think it might have been a comment I made about Israel or Zionism. And I thought, man, that would be the most likely thing. I'd made another funny comment about race in somewhere, and I thought maybe that joke had been misconstrued somehow. I looked at it, I'm like, nah, that's not. It doesn't sound racist. It doesn't look racist. It doesn't sound hateful. It just sounds like fun. That's nothing. And so, I don't know. Because they don't even tell you what they delete. All right. Yeah. Well, this is going to go in the same theme. A just man walketh in his integrity. Who can find a faithful man? Someone who walks faithful to those things. I want to look at those words real quick because, faithful and integrity. Yeah, right there. I want to know if it's is it the same word? Were they similar? Their own goodness, a faithful man, emun, integrity, tome. Oh, integrity was perfect. Integrity was a good way to translate that. Okay. And so the other one is, what? No, that's that one. Amun. Yeah. Let's say it says it means established, that is figuratively trusty, also trustworthiness. Oh, yeah, established, faithful, someone who can be trusted. Because they're established. They're not moved. They don't have changeable ways. They're established in the ways of the Lord. There's only, you don't have to, it doesn't, on a certain level, it gets kind of easy. It's not terribly complex, doing the right thing. not usually. A just man walketh in his integrity, staying true to those things. Not allow, if you have it in you, you say, I believe in free speech. You carry that with you, even when it goes into things that you don't agree with, even in speech you hate. I mean, there are things I won't say in this because I don't want it to be misconstrued as an actual saying of mine. But people should be able to say things that I won't say for that reason. Meaning, they should be able to say, like, for example, like when I talk about the law, and I will talk in this way. Like if I talk about passing a law that makes it, but let's say the passing a law that provides capital punishment for certain offenses, right? There we go. And what is that? That is an advocation for violence against people who do certain things that we would say are whatever, certain offenses, whatever those offenses may be. Now, I'm not in favor of the death penalty for really, well, I am in favor of it in principle. I'm just saying I'm not in favor of it under our system. As you can see, with the way people are being treated in our system, I think you would agree with me. You don't want easy death penalties, do you? Nod your head. Yeah, because it's like, when they can just declare you a terrorist, it doesn't go far from, well, if you're a terrorist, then, or a Nazi or a Christian, you deserve to die. That's what it would come to. And I'm not saying that. That is I don't want to say that lest it get misinterpreted. Like I said, it would be by law. And even if they do it by law, here's the thing, though. When you do it by law, it has to go through a process. People got to argue about it. People got to vote on it. And and that's the thing. Like I say, if people don't want to punish people who censored us, then I guess we won't. And then maybe we'll get more of it, and then maybe later we'll learn our lesson. I don't know. Eventually, I do believe we will, or the Assyrian comes, or the Assyrian comes, and then he carries us all away. Okay, and then all you gotta do is worry about that, and forget about all this other stuff. Let's just worry about that. On some level, I would be just fine. Doesn't matter, whatever. I'm almost ready for anything, right? A king that sitteth in the throne, his children, when you stay true to the things you believe in, when you don't start falling apart. Like when you start losing, it's like, hey, I thought you this, I'll tell you, in any way I broke that my kids would see. What would it be? Well, the thing is my use of profanity dropped away. I was very careful when the kids were younger. As they got older, and actually when the pandemic hit, I started swearing a lot. and I try to not swearing. I don't swear. I've used a lot of profanity. That's the truth. I don't swear. Not much, no. Maybe I might have sworn a few things. I don't know. Not sure. Try not to. Swear not at all. I do believe in that. I've declared many things, though. I've spoken many things. And that I do not regret. Not, I may yet. I probably will a bit, hey. But I'll never take it back. No. Who can find a faithful man? A just man who walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. When you do that, you do bless your children because it sets a good example. And the truth is, they would probably say that was not a big deal, as most people would probably think it's not a big deal, because I've stuck to all my other principles. They've always known me for who I am. I've been faithful to my wife. I've loved her. I've also faithfully raised them. I'm here. It's like that's... For a lot of people, they can't say that. Where's Dad? Well, we don't know. Where's Dad? We don't know. Where's Dad? And that's pretty sad. A man that walks in his integrity, that sticks by his family, that looks after them, and makes sure things get taken care of. That's the most important thing of all. If you can at least do that, you'll have a lot of respect, especially if you do it with kindness. And I say, as a man, as the head of the house, I give a lot in exchange for that absolute obedience that I expect at the final say. When I say, what I mean is, like, I don't want to have to micromanage this house. God forbid. But when it comes down to something big and it's like that, it's like my word is law. at least until that's over. And someday it will be over. Like my dad's word isn't law anymore. It's like those days pass away. Those days pass away. But he blessed me by staying true to the things he believed in, especially those things he believed in most. When you stay true to the most important things, people often will forget your small failings. But he that is faithful in that which is least is also faithful in that which is much. Pay attention to details because it helps us keep faithful when big things are on the line. That's why, it's important. When like I said, maybe it would have been easier to go through the pandemic just keeping my mouth shut and going along, here I'm declaring my goodness, whatever. Going along to get along, right? So what? And, and now it's just over. What? Did we change anything? In my opinion, it matters because I stayed true then, and it tells me that I will stay true to Christ. If for the sake of that I wouldn't violate my integrity, why would I do it for some in some other thing? A king sitteth in the throne of judgment, scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Ideally so, right? Cosmic justice. Cosmic justice. This is this is the white throne. I see several images here from the New Testament. I mean, you may have noticed when we read them, like there's a verse here that is basically what Jesus something he doesn't quote it, but he paraphrases it maybe about 50 times in the New Testament. Sort of, or alludes to it. Let's say alludes to it by way of paraphrase. And that verse is the one where it says what? Where was it that early? I think it is. My problem is spirit is light. I want to read it. The glory of young men. Wait. It was here. He that hath an ear to hear, let him hear. Oh yeah, there was the hearing ear and the seeing eye. Where is it? I didn't see it, but now I remember what it was. Oh, it is close to where we are. Oh yeah, there is verse 12. The hearing ear and the seeing eye. The Lord hath made both of them. And this, he says, Simon Peter, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. Blessed are your eyes, for they see. And flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. That's another thing that's important about that. And are we here? Oh, we're almost there. And we do have time to talk about it. That's good. Good. Scattering away evil with his eyes. Again, like I said, I see the white throne and, and I saw a great white throne and he that sat on it, from whose face the heaven and the earth fled away. You want to talk about evil. It's like, and it's kind of cool. I want to know what that word evil is before we go on. Is it calamity or which one is it? Is it rebellion? Which word for evil is it here? It is Ra, which is that evil that is usually thought of as calamity. It is our word for evil. I didn't bring it up actually. I'll just go back. Ra. And that's interesting because it's not because his purpose of standing there is to cure evil. I mean, why do you have someone sit in judgment? Well, there's an evil been done. A murder's happened or something's happened. Some evil has befallen someone. There's something that has to be adjudicated and cured. And that is what the purpose of, that's why he's there. His eyes look into things. They're supposed to look into piercing the depths and the deceits. That's the idea, that he sits in the throne of judgment, that he would look into the matter. Bring the matter before the king, that he may redress the evil. That is why God sits in judgment. And that is, that is ultimately the answer to the problem of evil, is that God will sit in judgment and scatter it away with his eyes. Because he will redress all of it. And every sin will be paid for, and every sinner recompensed. Who can say, I have made my heart clean? I am pure from my sin. Rhetorical question, right? It's a rhetorical question. Who can say this? Only God can purify our hearts. So it says in Psalm, purify my heart. Let it be as gold, as precious silver. Create in me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a right spirit within me. Because what can we do? Because even if we should forget, he doesn't forget. And he will bring it to our remembrance. You are not pure from your sin when time goes by. It's still there. It's always waiting to be judged. All the things I've done. And the only man who can say these things that has washed themselves in the blood of Christ, right? We can say, we have washed them clean. We've washed our garments clean in the blood of the Lamb. We've washed our hearts. Our hearts have been circumcised. Our lips purified. So it should be. And so they are. And God reckons it so. Even in your failings, even in your weakness, your weakness is his strength. Because God's strength is made perfect in weakness. So every time I go through and I list for myself in in my not so good moments, when I would sit down and think about all the reasons why God shouldn't use me, why he wouldn't choose me, all the cases against me. And it always makes me kind of crack up because I realize the stronger I make the case, the stronger it gets to where it's like, no, it's because it's ironic. Now it makes sense. He's like, no, it's just like he likes to make those stories happen. So it's like, of course he uses failable people. He doesn't have any choice. It's not like he's got perfect people to work with. There's nothing about you that rules you out. God's the one who makes the eye to see. He's the one who makes the ear to hear. When you walk in integrity, you bless your children. Mention that. Okay, who can say I've made my heart clean? I am pure from my sin. Well, the Christian may. Even so, only by the blood of Jesus. And let's walk therein, okay? Let's not, you say, okay, here's the thing I say. When you have that in Christ, that imputation, that is such a beautiful state. But it's not a forever state. We have to move on to perfection. Someday we're going to rise from the dead. And we're going to stand before him. And we're going to receive the righteous reward of faithful servants, right? Unless we weren't faithful servants, unless we just totally left our service in the dirt, and just, ate and drank with the drunken and, smote our fellow servants and still somehow we're wearing a cross the whole time or some BS, but we don't really, it's like, it's not that they disbelieve. It's just they were so much more busy with other things. That's, I swear what it is. One with his merchandise, the other with his business, No, one in his merchandise, the other to his farm, or what was it, field in the parable? Whatever. They don't got time for the wedding feast. They're just way too busy with life. Diverse weights and diverse measures. God does not, that means having a fake weight, basically, or two sets of weights. Look at, like this one, they say 1 gram, but one's a little heavier, one's a little lighter. And if you put them on an even scale, two weights that are supposed to be the same, they should balance out. And so if they don't, that means it's, diverse weights. That weight is diverting from the norm. I'm just saying, I don't know if that's backed up by the Hebrew there, and I'm not particularly interested, actually. Diverse weights. It's one word. Stone. An ephah. Whatever. Apparently it just says stone and ephah. Both of them are in a bomb. It just gives weights, and I think it's, I don't know, whatever it is linguistically there. It's not showing me much, so I'm going to go on. I know what it means. God doesn't like people who tip the scales. To make things unjust. And that's part of the problem with our law. People talk about our society and say, so capitalism has failed. We don't live in a capitalist society. And I don't even like the idea of capitalism per se. Capitalism's when people just take their money and where'd you get all that money anyway? And there's money into things, and it's like they don't actually work anything. I'm not a big fan of people who just move money around. No, I'm not. Because that's not what I think of as what I believe in as far as economics. That's like, that's like just that is something Marx made up. That's a term he used to describe what he was trying to say the other system was. And he was just describing the evils of society, and then he lumped it into a system, and it's like, but like that's not, I don't like taking the other side of that. That to me, it's like falling into the trap of Republicans and Democrats, or conservatives and liberals, or right wing and left wing. It's like I took my political compass, I came in at the middle, just to the right of center. It's not because I have wishy-washy views. It's because I had extreme views on all sides not all sides of every issue, meaning something like I'm extremely anti-war. Well, they consider that left wing, so I get dragged halfway to the left on that. And a lot of other things I believe, like, oh, free speech, that's left wing. I'm like, well, okay, so that's what happens. And so I end up being I'm like almost exactly, I was just on the libertarian side of the center right, But then you have this perception. Anyways, but I'm falling into that trap of thinking along those lines. We shouldn't do it. But anyways, diverse weights and measures. Where was I getting at that from that? Hold on. Well, I think I was trying to make an analogy about diverse weights and measures, because we want equity, right? Equality. People want things to turn out good for everybody. That's what equity is. I don't buy into capitalism. I believe in a free market, mostly free, with regulations. The only regulations you need are just to make things fair, not necessarily to pick winners and losers and hobble people. But that's the way it works now. Regulations make it harder for people to do business, especially smaller people. It's a lot harder to do. So we need a system that is more free and less intrusive, but also in a sense, like I said, it's like I'm not against all regulations. I'm just against the kind that hobble small businesses and favor big ones, pick winners and losers. The system is more like a fascist system where big business works hand in hand, government and private partnerships and that kind of stuff. That's like fascism. And the people have been in love with that kind of socialism, which was fascism since the 1920s and stuff, which at the time they weren't shy about saying we're taking our cue from Italy and taking our cue from Germany, and there still is a bit of that. I mean, especially in war and when you consider like the war industry, the weapons industry. I mean, it's deeply in bed with the government, and something that we should have been, they warned us about. Literally, we were warned about it 70 years ago, almost 74, 5 years ago, whatever. Was that 1950? No, he was elected in 50. I forgot when Eisenhower gave his favorites, but whatever. Almost like 7 years ago. And we were warned about military-industrial complex being a growing problem, but we didn't seem to do anything about it. We didn't do anything about it. We said, oh, yeah? Oh, whoa. Somebody should do it. And everyone in Congress was like, oh, look at he's talking. And everyone just let him said that, and it's just become this remarkable thing ever since. Who cared about it, like Ron Paul and such, But anyways, diverse weights and measures. Like I said, there are a lot of things that are abominable to God. Sexual immorality is abominable, and so are things like dealing deceitfully in business, or having, like I said, to me it goes like, things like affirmative action are also like diverse weights and measures. It's discrimination. In fact, this is a good, you shouldn't have a higher price for someone like if someone of a different race comes in, they shouldn't have to pay more money, right? That should be equal, right? If someone of a different race comes in, doesn't mean they should have a less chance of getting a job. It should be the same for everybody. God always delighted in the things in the law. It says you don't treat a stranger differently under the law when it comes to crimes and stuff. You don't oppress the stranger. Well, you're not from around here. You don't get the same consideration. You're not an American citizen. We can drone you anytime we want. That's an abomination. That's an abomination. And it's Obama who did that abomination, actually. He droned a U.S. citizen because he was a terrorist, they claim. And because he declared him so. That's a very king-like action. But the military, they want to suggest to you do these things. Hey, kill somebody. Hey, kill somebody. Crazy. It's crazy. That's diverse weights and measures, yes. They measure things unequally. A big heaping portion for me, a tiny little portion for you. Oh, yes, a big fat contract for my friends in the industry, and a big bill for your great-grandchildren to pay in perpetuity, high taxes, and miserable no services. That's what it's going to be. High taxes, no benefits. That's what we're going to have in the future. That's what your grandchildren are going to have. High taxes and no benefits. That's what we set up for them. They're going to curse us if they ever live to see the light of day. They'll curse this generation. Say, what a bunch of irresponsible pieces of garbage preceded us. That's what they will. Say, well, if the World War II generation was the best generation, that was the worst generation. Not World War II. Us. The supposed adults in the room. I mean, I'll tell you what, whatever. Maybe I should have gone into politics, but no, I'm glad I went into religion. Because wherever I would have gone, it wouldn't have been good. Well, I don't know. The Lord always had his hand on me, but he didn't have me go there. So I'm thankful. There's no such thing as I shoulda. I say that ruefully, though. Because I think, like, nobody who was there who wanted to do anything got anything done. And many people who tried to get there to do something about it couldn't get elected. And that's the fact. It's not like there weren't people trying. There were. It's just that I think, for so long, the media was really captured, and then the internet started opening things, and now they're trying desperately to capture it. Except, unlike before, they can't do it without people noticing. And so that's a problem. And that's why there's going to be trouble about it, guaranteed, because I'm already ready for it. Even a child is known by his doings. People are known by what they do, whether his work be pure or whether it be right. That's people, of course that means everybody, right? But it's our doings. That's what I said. Who can find a faithful man? People know, again, it's by their works you will know them. So Jesus said, and we all, like James said, hey, show me your faith without your works. I'll show you my faith by my works, brother. That's all there is to it. Because you want to say, I'm not saying you get saved by works. God forbid. You're saved by faith, period. But if a man say you have faith and have not works, surely his faith is vain and he's lying. Because it's like, how long have you been a Christian? 20 years? You have no works in 20 years? What are you? What's wrong with you? What were you in were you in a coma? Yeah, I mean, would you accept Jesus and fall asleep for 20 years? You got in a coma or something? That would have, no works. Oh, well, surely, welcome back, right? Welcome back. Would you like to start some works, not to get saved, but because I love my Savior and he's called us to good works. Has he not? You want to lie and say he didn't call us to good works? You're going to lie and say that we are not his workmanship created in Christ Jesus unto good works? Are you going to lie and say that that's not the purpose for which a Christian is made? A purpose for which they receive faith? Get thee hence, Satan. Get thee hence. I get so sick of these satanic preachers who basically want to cripple every new believer and make sure they never go anywhere. My Lord. Just to close, I love this verse because, like I said, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. When Jesus would say to Peter, hey, when Peter said, he said, who do you say that I am? He said, you are the Christ, and he's like, blessed are your eyes, Simon, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. He that hath, and when he says, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. He that hath eyes to see and ears to hear. Like, when he used those terminologies, this is what he's referring to. I mean, like, it wasn't like he just pulled that idea out of the sky. It was already a notion. Not a notion, a truth. Like I said, it's a cosmic truth. It's a cosmic justice. But, God is the one, when the hearing ear, there's an ear that is a not hearing ear. And the seeing eye, there's an eye that is a not seeing eye. Of course, literally, but also figuratively, spiritually. And that's why it's of the Lord. Just like when it says, like, man's in his head, he's trying to figure things out, right? He's like, oh, my mind, but then he does stuff, and it's God who orders his steps. That's why people get all up in arms about things, and ultimately, like, wait a second, God's in charge of everything, then how can anything be, they can't understand it. When I say it goes to the notion, it's like, you understand, we're sinners. It's a great mercy that God made us. Why? It's like, because he could have just, if he wanted just a perfect world, he could have left us out of it. He could have created a better species of something in his image. Something more angelic or something like that. Even the angels fall, I guess, right? But I mean, something, well, you could make just ones that wouldn't, Oh, no, it has to be possible that all would be. What do you mean? What's wrong with God making a free will being that won't do things? I mean, like, my free will is to not do things. Like, to not rebel against God, to not disobey God. That's my, what I mean? Like, and I can't change that. You know what I mean? Because I know that's my nature. I can think about it and try to struggle against it and try to exert my will against my nature, sure. And oftentimes I do. But even my will itself is bound. Because God, he knows all. And I may be inside here all subjectively, like thinking and scheming and all this, but God is just, why do the heathen rage, right? He that sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord will put hooks in the jaws of the wicked if he needs them to be. Oh, come here. Get over here. Anyways, thanks for joining me. I don't know. It's kind of funny. We're doing a Saturday. It was just, Katie was like, hey, do a study. And I'm like, okay. And so we'll see. But we'll return again. I don't know. Maybe there'll be something over Christmas. Who knows? Because it's like, I never know. Maybe I'll do something Christmas Eve. There's no reason I can't. So we'll see. I didn't like missing Thursday. And so we can get them in whenever we make time. So until next time, thanks for joining me. And remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, therefore behold, the Lord bringeth upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory. He shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks, and he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the